very, very honored and very happy to have one of the most experienced sports show hosts in the country joining us right now, Rich Herrera. Rich, how are you?
I don't know how much of an honor it is to have someone like me, but I'm kind of happy that I get to come on the program with you today. I'm great. How are you? Greetings from the West Coast.
Thank you. I'm doing great. Let me ask you, most importantly, during this COVID-19 period, how are you and the family doing?
You know what? I am going to tell you. I'll give you a little story here. You ready?
I'm ready.
So there's an old saying that I learned from the farm director of the Tampa Bay Rays, a gentleman by the name of Mitch Lukovich. Probably one of the most brilliant baseball men I've ever met in my life. And he always said and told me this years and years ago, and I try to tell this to everybody. I tell it to my son. I try to live it, especially when things aren't looking great. You either get bitter or you get better. So the story goes, when you send a major leaguer down to the minor leagues, or you demote somebody from AAA back down to AA, it's behooved upon the manager to sit down with that player and tell them in no uncertain terms. You don't be politically correct. You tell them exactly why they're getting sent down and what they need to fix in order to come back up. You owe it to them. But then after you do that, it's up to the player to decide whether you're going to get better or you're going to get bitter. And the good ones take to heart what the manager said. They work hard on trying to fix those deficiencies, and they get better. The ones who go down and get bitter and complain that they got screwed over, people didn't like them, the umpires had it out to get them, are soon out of the game. So the question is today, with everything going on, are you going to get better or are you going to be bitter? And I am working my tail off right now, as I hope everyone else is, to get better, and don't let the bitterness overrun you.
Now, Rich, you've been an avid sports fan. I know you've been in the sports media now, at least since I remember, 25 years roughly now.
No, I'm old.
Yeah, so am I. Because I remember you back then. Describe what it's been like the past month, being as a fan and also as a sports show host. What's it been like the last month with life without sports?
Wow, that's a great question. So I purposely have hobbies away from sports. I actually have, don't think ill of me, but I actually have friends that aren't sports fans because I can sit and talk to them about things and it doesn't always revolve around work. So I did a podcast years ago, and in the podcast, I interviewed other broadcasters. I interviewed about 50 broadcasters, and one thing they all had in common, just about, was they're all history buffs. They all loved to read. So hobby-wise, for me, without sports, I miss baseball. Man, do I miss baseball. I miss this point of the season where the NBA gets really, really exciting. I miss college baseball. I miss sports so bad. But I have something in my life to kind of fill that void. It helped me get through it I'm reading, I'm listening to books on tape, I listen to podcasts. So I'm trying to keep myself busy to not dwell on it. But I'll tell you what, in San Diego, the station here did a simulated game of MLB The Show on Sony PlayStation, and we played it back on our Facebook page. And I sat there watching a virtual game with virtual players being played by the algorithm of a computer in a PlayStation game, and I was riveted. I was sitting there on the edge of my seat, pumping my fist over virtual characters. I was so excited for that game. I think that there are a bunch of people like me that are trying to keep their mind off of things, whether it's YouTube or not watching the news 24 hours a day, which you can get sucked into. But there's so much more that I'm trying to live right now and experience that, oh, brother, I can't wait till I get back to the ballpark and eat a hot dog and sit underneath that blue sky with those pillowy clouds to see that perfect green and a manicured clay. It's going to be heaven. As far as working with no sports, this is like, Larry, this is like the day after the Super Bowl. Sports talk radio is fun for 10 months out of the year. Baseball season is fun. Football is amazing. But then once you get past the Super Bowl and the national championship of college football is over, there's a lull. There's about a 3-week lull before March Madness begins, before spring training gets going. The NBA is still not playing defense, and the NHL is playing, but there's no sense of urgency. There's no drama in it. They're just kind of going through their 82-game season, and that's fine because you have to have a long season in order to figure out who really is the best team in the NHL and the NBA. But there's not that sense of drama and urgency at that point in the season. And that's where sports talk show hosts really earn their money. Anybody could talk Super Bowl week. Anybody could talk about the national championship, the World Series. Anybody can talk about the All-Star game. Because when you earn your money and you see how really good you are, is when you can make something happen and create content in that little 3-week lull after the Super Bowl. And that's what this is like right now with sports. That thank goodness the NFL let us have free agency to take our mind off of things. But right now, you've got to really deep dig. You got to dig down deep, and you got to be creative, and you got to think, and you got to grind. And these are the hardest shows that you have to do. So what I've been doing, I've been filling in on CBS Sports Radio. I've been approaching it 2 ways. The first approach is I'm thinking about myself, my family, my friends, and everybody around the country. We're getting beat up with all this bad news. We're getting just inundated. People are losing their jobs left and right. People are scared, Larry. So it's my job as a talk show host to give them a diversion, but still be respectful of everything that's going on with people getting sick, losing their lives, losing their jobs, and the country being scared. So I've been telling everybody the approach I've had is, listen, I know what's going on. Don't think that it's not on my mind and I'm not thinking about it, but my job right now is to give you a little bit of distraction. And the thing that's resonated the most is I've told everybody, I'm giving you permission to have that distraction. Don't think that you're sticking your head in the sand. Don't feel guilty about taking a breather. Don't feel guilty that you're not sitting there watching CNN and MSNBC and Fox and ABC and listening to all the news, because you can only take so much of that and you need a mental breather. I'm reminded of the story that when Ike was planning D-Day, he was smoking 8 packs of cigarettes a day, and he was just under so much pressure that George Marshall, General Marshall, forced him, Larry, to take a vacation as he's planning D-Day to invade Normandy. And they made him go on a vacation because you have to have a mental break. And that's what I've been telling everybody, is you have to have a mental break. We can't just keep grinding like this forever. Everybody needs a break. So those 4 hours, I'm telling you, I'm giving you permission. I'm telling you it's okay to take a mental break. It's okay to step away for just a moment and just relax and let your shoulders down a little bit and smile a minute. And then we'll get back to what we're all needing to do, which is pull together to get through this. But you need a mental break.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to go back a little bit in time.
Sure.
2005, 2011. Actually, both of us at that time lived in the Tampa Bay area. You were the pre- and post-game show host of the Tampa Bay Rays. 3 years later, 2008, after you began, the Rays make it to the World Series. Is that one of the most memorable times in your show host history? And just explain what it was like to be around that.
So my late father used to tell me, Larry, that I've never had a real job in my life because I got paid to go to ballparks and eat hot dogs. And I've always remembered that. My dad was a cop. He worked. I just got to stand there and observe. I've seen some pretty cool stuff. All-Star games, Super Bowls. I've met a lot of famous people. One time I was standing in Times Square, and it was during the World Series, and I was doing shows in Times Square at the old, if you remember, the All-Star Cafe, which was a sports-themed restaurant. So I just want to walk outside and see what's it like to see in Times Square and look up at the big screen and watch the World Series. So I'm standing there, and a gentleman walks up next to me and he goes, "What's the score?" And I'm like, "I come to score." And I look over and I'm like, I know that voice. And it was Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite is standing next to me. He had been at a play, but he came out during intermission and he was trying to catch up with the game. So I stood there and had like a 5-minute conversation with Walter Cronkite in New York watching the World Series at Times Square. That's something very, very unique, and it's something that I'll tell people, like, wow, that's pretty cool. But the whole World Series worst to first, you have to put it in the context that when I got to Tampa Bay, it was the worst. I mean, the worst organization in all of sports. Nobody respected them. My gosh, they used to get made fun of by the Simpsons. They had Letterman because his sister worked for the St. Petersburg Times would take cracks at him. I mean, they were really the doormat of professional sports. And Vince Naimoli tried as best he could, but they just were the laughing stock. I don't think Vince was the laughing stock. The people that worked there worked hard, but they just didn't have much success. So when I got there, and I was so excited, I put on a double-A cap, and I'd wear it around, and I had all this green on, and there were no fans. Like, I went to go get a haircut. When I first got to town, I told the woman that I worked for the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. So I was so proud, Larry, that I was working there. And she goes, oh, yeah, I never go to the games. I don't like driving over to Tampa. And for those of you listening, outside the Bay Area, there's two cities. There's Tampa and there's St. Pete. And we were in St. Petersburg, where the city that the Rays Stadium was. And she said, no, they play over in Tampa on the other side of the bridge, and I don't like driving over that bridge. I go, ma'am, they play like 10 minutes from here. She didn't even know that the stadium was 10 minutes away from where I was getting a haircut. That's how little interest there was in the team. I tell people it was like if you went to a small liberal arts college in the Northeast and you walk around Florida and everybody's got finger stuff, Noel stuff, McCain stuff on, USF, UCF. You might see someone across a crowded room and they have that same color sweatshirt that you did in your school, and you're like, oh my gosh, finally somebody's going to be here for my, what's the matter with you up in upstate New York? And you run over to that person. It happens just to be a T-shirt of that color. You were so desperate to find somebody else that followed that team because you felt like you were all alone on an island. So when you take that juxtaposition and the green and getting beat up and losing 100 games a year, the grind of that, to go all the way from worst to first to that World Series, and you had to get past New York, to get past Boston. People start kind of coming around and they start getting excited. And by July, there's something pretty special going on here. And then they hit a little bit of a lull and fell back down and go, oh, here we go, Yankees and Red Sox take over. And they fought through that and had that strong kick to get all the way to the World Series. It was one of the most amazing things. If you ever watch anybody talk about the Miracle on Ice, the players in Lake Placid didn't know that America had all jumped on that bandwagon because they were stuck up in Lake Placid and didn't know that everybody around the country was following their every move. I remember that story, so I made sure I tried to step back as much as I could and see and have a mind's eye view of what was going on. So I really got to absorb it. A friend of mine told me before the World Series, he says, Richie, you're going to get beat up with ticket requests, long hours, travel, parties, everything in the world. And if you don't sit there and you take a moment to let it all set in, it'll go by you and you might not ever be back again. So I sat down there for about 10 minutes by myself. I blocked out 10 minutes and I just sat there in the stands behind home plate and just took in the whole view just so I had time to sit there and digest it and process what we were going through so I could appreciate the moment even more. But there's something, Larry, that you cannot replicate. I have all the memories. Like one of my greatest memories was we came back after a game, and it seemed like the whole town showed up to greet us. And we got off the plane, and there's people everywhere. And my young son, I think he was 7 at the time, was standing there with my wife, and he kind of reached up over the barricade where we were walking through, keeping the fans on each side. The players were high five, everybody's high fiving. And Rigney, who's now 19 years old, he jumped in my arms and just held on for dear life and wouldn't let go. And I remember, and I have pictures of me and him walking through the crowd. He's got a Herrera jersey on, Rays jersey on. I'm holding him, and he's holding on to me around my neck. And it's one of the greatest feelings I've ever had. So I remembered all of that. I have those memories. The one thing I can't replicate, or I don't have a way of replicating and reliving, is the smell that you get inside the locker room where you can taste the champagne without drinking it. As they're shooting the bubbles in the air and they're spraying champagne all over each other, and it's a closed room and all that carbonation goes into the air, you can taste champagne through your nostrils. It's an experience that not many people have, not many people ever get to have, and it's something that you have so little in your lifetime. That taste of champagne through your nostrils, the smell of champagne, is something that I'll never forget, but I don't think I'll ever be able to experience again.
We got a couple more minutes here. We're talking live to Rich Herrera, the sports radio show host. Rich, I gotta ask you this because I remember now watching Rays games, and Rich Herrera wasn't just a pregame and postgame radio show host. I remember times, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you actually did some TV. I don't remember if it was play-by-play or commentating, filling in for whoever was doing the games then. So my question to you is, you've done a lot. You've done radio show hosting. You've done your own show podcasting. You on Sirius FM, and you've done play-by-play. We got about 2 minutes left here. In 2 minutes, which one do you prefer doing the best?
Okay, so I want to make sure I'm not taking stolen valor. I never got to do the play-by-play for the Rays. I did down in Durham with the Bulls on television, and when I was on TV, it was normally the TV crew goofing on me, but it was still fun whenever they would show me on TV. Of all the things I've done, and I think I've had the most, the thing I enjoyed the most was play-by-play, obviously, because it's very glamorous. The thing that I loved the most was being able to connect to fans, Larry. I tell people I've been invited to more funerals, more weddings, birthday parties for people I've never met before in my life, but listen on the radio, and we became friends in a one-way conversation with me talking to them, but they felt we had such a connection that they would invite me to milestones, and I've been to funerals for people that I've never met. So the greatest moment, the thing that I loved the most was, I'll tell you this quick story. There was a gentleman that was in a retirement home in a wheelchair, and his son would bring him to Tropicana Field every night, and they would stop by the brew house and watch me do the pregame show, and the father would sit down and the son would sit down, and they just stand there and watch, and every day, every game. And we got to know each other kind of, and I walk over and talk to them during breaks, and I'd wave at them, and they'd wave at me on their way in, or they'd wave at me on their way back, and it got to be a routine. So the next year, I'm looking for them, and I don't see them. I'm like, I wonder, I guess they're not coming to this game. Maybe they'll have tickets, so hopefully I'll see them tomorrow. I just remember that because it became such a routine for us. And the son came by. I think you can all choke up when I tell you this. The son came by, and he told me, I said, hey, Hash, where's your dad? He said, Rich, I got bad news. I said, my dad passed away over the winter. And I'm like, wow. Now I'm tearing up when I tell you the story. He said, my dad passed away. I said, wow, so sorry to hear that. He's such a nice man. He goes, yep. And he said, he made me promise that I would come see you on opening day. That was one of his last wishes. So when you're able to have that kind of relationship with people, it makes you cherish what you do and appreciate it.
Rich,
I didn't mean to get all smoky on you right there, but you asked me that question, and we were talking about the traffic. It popped in my mind. I think about that gentleman a lot.
And I remember you at the brew house. I do remember those days, right inside the stadium. Listen, I want to really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for joining us today. I know one of the reasons I'm currently doing what I'm doing is because the inspiration, you've given me when I've listened to you. So I really want to take the time to thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, I'm honored that you thought of me, you remembered me, and you invited me to come on, and you've got my number now. You just hit me up, let me know. We will do this again, and I promise I won't break down crying when I'm telling you a story about the Trop.
Not a problem. Stay safe, my friend.
All right, take care.
Bye. That was Rich Herrera, the